Please rise to salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today's meeting is a meeting of the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee. We have two items on the agenda. I will recognize committee members first. We have committee councilors Janino, councilors Guanasso, and myself from the committee, and we also have Councilor Correggio, Councilor Haz, Councilor Patch, and Councilor Penta. First item on the agenda is 12-272, an ordinance amending the City of Revere's sewer use regulations. I know we have City Planner Frank Stringy and John Doherty from CDM in the audience. I'll open it up to them if they'd like to speak, and then I'll open it up to councilors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As was stated last time and at the public hearing, these ordinance amendments are just an effort to bring the City of Revere's sewer use ordinance up to date with current EPA and DEP regulations. And because of the consent decree, EPA has required that we undertake these minor amendments. And again, the minor amendments are just the matter of putting sump pumps into the ordinance as an illicit discharge source. In the past, that was left out, but EPA picked up on that, and it's a major source of inflow coming into the city sewer system. The other amendments are simply legal housekeeping amendments and changes. And one change deals with fines. The fines in the old ordinance were no less than $1,000 per day, and what we did this time is we reduced it to $50 per day. So we became a lot more lenient in that direction. So it's pretty straightforward. You know, it's something the city has to do, and it's mandated. So it's an easy change.
Thanks, Frank. I know we've had a couple of meetings on this issue, and we've kind of gone back and forth, and some councilors have voiced some concerns. I'm going to recognize Councilor Guanasso first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, you alluded to right off the bat, one of the concerns I had was the $5,000 figure, that it's down to $50. That's reasonable, and that's something that I could live with. Now, once that is levied upon somebody, how much leadway, once you make a point of entry into the home and the property, and you state that, you know, there's an illegal hookup here, this must be corrected. From that point on, how much time do they have before they start getting fined?
We allow 30 days for them to correct the
30
problem.
days. That's reasonable. Yes. And during the course of this review, do you notify the homeowners when you come in, or how are they notified that your presence is there? You just open the door, knock on the door and say, here I am, or what do you do?
Presently, Councilor, we run this program in conjunction with the plumbing inspector, building department's office. When a plumbing inspection is needed for either a new boiler or new plumbing, the plumbing inspector is directed to look for illegal hookups, such as sump pumps. If he finds one, we send out he at that time notifies the homeowner, lets them know what the problem is and how to fix it, and we send out an enforcement order stating it has to be fixed within 30 days. And usually they're very cooperative. Sometimes or most times it's a very easy fix. It's a matter of just redirecting the pipe out a window.
In the event that a plumbing inspector is not required to go to the home for any inspection, how would you make your determination to go to the property?
We would have to conduct a house-to-house survey, house-to-house inspections. We would have to notify, we would do it with target area by neighborhood and notify the homeowners in that neighborhood that were coming in and we'd like to enter your property. That hasn't been successful in the past. We've tried that, and the entry rate has been really low. So what we'd like to do this time is give people an amnesty period, notify residents that if you have a sump pump that's illegally connected, the city will give you an amnesty period, let's say up to 2 years, to have it fixed. And we'll put you on a list. And as the city gets money through the SRF funding or other sources, we'll go in and actually make that correction and connection for those people that come forward and state that they have an illegal connection.
So you're giving them an opportunity, you're giving them a reasonable time.
Absolutely.
A 2-year period is pretty good, and so this, Mr. Chairman, alleviates some of the concerns I had. I didn't want the homeowner to be besieged, some poor elderly couple sitting by watching TV, and all of a sudden all of the workforce of the City of Revere is upon their property. But this gives everybody an opportunity to address the issue, and I think the fine is within reason. So my main objection to that was the severity of the fine. So I have no problems with that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Donato. I agree with your sentiment about the amnesty period. I do think it's a good compromise to make sure that our residents aren't hit too badly. I'm going to recognize Councilor John Powers, who's also a committee member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Frank, I agree with you wholeheartedly on the amnesty program. But the thing that comes to my mind is, let's say that the charges to correct that situation are fairly significant. What does the city do from the the money from the state revolving fund? How much does the city pick up to help them? Let's say you have an elderly couple that are on fixed incomes, maybe one fixed income, maybe just Social Security. What does the city do to help them? And perhaps it isn't even their fault. Maybe they bought a house from a contractor that built a house 30 or 40 years ago. Maybe the city shirked its responsibility then to make sure that when the house was inspected and built by a contractor, that the contractor put something in there that maybe he shouldn't have put in there. So how do we address this with with that particular instance?
Yeah, a lot of these cases are older homes, mostly all new construction. They're inspected to get occupancy permits. They have to abide by all our codes, including, proper discharge of stormwater. So to answer your question, this is exactly what the amnesty program would do, would make it easier on homeowners that have purchased properties that are unaware that they have this problem. And there are probably many. And I can't tell you how many there are in the city. We don't know until we do a house-to-house survey or until people come forward and tell us through the amnesty program. But the procedure that we would follow is the SRF funding that comes in, and we're talking about a large chunk of money that we would dedicate to this to remove these sources, because they are a large inflow source in the city, and it's a big problem. So I think we're throwing numbers around like $500,000 to start the program. So those people that come forward first and get on the amnesty list, we would direct the money towards those homes and have those corrected first. And the fix could be anywhere from $200 to $1,000. We haven't seen anything that's that costly to fix. So we could do quite a bit with a good chunk of money.
What portion of that $1,000 would the city be picking up?
We would pick up 100%. We wouldn't put any of the burden on the homeowner at all.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm asking is if a homeowner all of a sudden encountered, for some reason unbeknown to you or I this evening, a charge of $2,000 or $3,000 or even more to correct that problem, where would we be going then?
I don't believe, we will not put a cap on it. I'm just throwing rough numbers out at you. But if it was an instance where it came to be $2,000, the SRF funds would be used until we correct the source.
Well, that makes me feel a little more comfortable this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Councilor Correggio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pretty well versed with the ordinance, and I agree with it. I think it's long overdue. The $50 fine, the 30-day period. The question I have is there a device that detects illegal hookups, electronic device that you could detect a situation in a home?
There is not. It has to be done by a visible inspection.
And they will not be random inspections? Will they be random inspections of homes?
No, would not be random. That's what the whole idea of the amnesty
Right.
program would be, so people that know they have sump pumps can put their name on the list, so they'd be in line for funding to take care of the problem at no cost to them. So that's an incentive for homeowners to get on the list and have the problem corrected.
Just to mention to yourself and the public, I had it done myself. A private company comes in, and if you have a water issue in the basement, they will hook up a sump pump and probably put it outside the house, not hooking it up at the sewer line. So there is companies professionally that can assist the residents with a water problem in the basement with some type of a pump that be legally put in. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Correggio. Councilor Has.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Frank, as you know, we tried this 15 years ago. It never worked. It's great to see that the city's being mandated to correct its problems at this point in time. Toscano, Geneva, Asti, all of those areas, we had major problems in the past. One of the sources that you're going to use will be smoke testing, or what?
Smoke testing won't detect sump pumps. Area drains, downspouts, catch basins, foundation drains, it will detect, but sump pumps, it will not. So it calls for a visible inspection to go in, actually enter the property and look for it.
So when you start this inspection of the properties, are you going to do it geographically? Maybe start in Ward 1, Ward 5, or whatever, and just systematically go up and down the streets?
That's
Because
the
most of
intent-
it's visible. Most of it's visible, correct?
That's the intention, to hit target areas, neighborhoods, do one neighborhood at a time, till we work our way throughout the whole city.
And I think it's a great idea to create the amnesty program. How are you going to alert the residents via tax bills, ads in the local papers, et cetera, or how?
Yeah, we will probably put a notice in with their water and sewer bills, as well as have it advertised in the local papers and on the city's website.
And I think if you do mention the amnesty program, and the city will reimburse almost all of the costs of it, I think that's a tremendous asset for the individual homeowners to move forward, without question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Has. Councilor Penta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Frank. The assumption is basically, and this is through 3 or 4 different people I talked to, even Bob Buttons and some people down at the DPW, the Water Department, that's probably about 4,000 people. It's probably 6,000, 7,000 have sub pumps, but some of them are legitimate. They are hooked up to the drainage system. But the consensus is about 4,000. You're taking $500,000 out. So if it was, you're talking 400,000 to 500,000, which is a good figure. Because I have a different idea of this. All this water, and you're talking hundreds and hundreds, and over the years, you're talking millions of 100 cubic feet of water that we're paying storage for this when we're supposed to be paying zero. In other words, every gallon of water, 100 cubic feet that goes through these pipes, we're paying for the MWRA, which is 3 times your water rate, your sewer. Well, we should be paying zero. And that's why I asked for the numbers, and just the numbers of looking throughout the MWR communities. We are the highest in comparison to intake and outtake. And that's only money differentials, but when I get the numbers, I'm sure it's going to show the same thing. So my thing is this, you know, people are doing this illegally, we're paying for it. I mean, what more can you ask? I mean, I wish this thing started, like you said, 20, 30 years ago. Because, I mean, if people knew that they're paying for this, and even the person hooked up illegally is paying for it. And as Councilor Powell said, I don't think some of these people even know they're hooked up illegally. So, I mean, you really can't blame them, but you're doing everything possible from paying for it. So why shouldn't they step up and say, look, come inspect my home? I think the ones that don't do it after amount of time, the $50 fine isn't good enough. I mean, you're willing to pay for it. You're saying every water rate payer in the city, tons of money, and it's probably millions over the years. So, I mean, I don't see why we want to drop the penalty to $50 if someone in a year or two don't come into the city and say have a sub pump. I mean, they're defeating the purpose here. So, I have a different take on this, that we're paying for it, and like I said, it's millions and millions of gallons of storage that we paid for, we should have paid zero for. So if you add that up, it's mind-boggling. So to wait on this, I think, is ludicrous, and I'm all for this. And like I said, too bad it didn't happen before. But it's got to get done, and like I said, the sooner the better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Penta. Councilor Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Frank, I came in late for this part of the conversation, but I've been assured by Councilor Powers that you haven't addressed it. I'm very concerned about the estimates versus the actual funding of this thing. And I would really like to be reassured in some way that we have a good estimate as to the so-called 4,000 hookups, and that they're going to be remediated at an average of $1,000. Because, you know, you're offering people amnesty, and to me, when you say amnesty, it means you're going to be able to fund it. And I'm very concerned about the last guy in line or someone else showing up and saying, well, we're sorry, we're out of money, you got to do it yourself. And that's one question. The other question I brought up at the public hearing on the new ordinance was how much of the ordinance was essentially grafted over from other towns' ordinances, et cetera, and how much was kind of reinvented for this, for our specific situation, and what those specifics were.
We'll tell you. Second question, Anderson Krieger is the law firm that represented the city in the consent decree, and they drafted up the changes to bring this ordinance in line with DEP and EPA regulations, which were basically from other towns, and that was accepted by DEP and EPA. And regarding the first question, there are approximately 10,000 structures in the city, including commercial and multi-use structures. I can't give you a number of how many actual sump pumps. We don't have a handle on actually sump pumps that exist in the city, but if 50% of those structures have sump pumps, you know, you're talking 4,000 or 5,000 sump pumps, and maybe 50% of those are illegally connected. You could be talking 2,000 or 3,000 sump pumps citywide, and we intend to make sure that we have sufficient money through the SRF program to address all those sump pumps.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm hearing this right. When people come to you and they say, look, I absolutely have a sump pump that's unhooked up, we're going to be able to say, no problem, we'll take care of it. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
That's the intention. This is the only incentive we can provide.
You know what they say about the road to perdition being paved with good intentions. I want to know, are we going to be able to tell people when they come in and say, look, I want to get this remediated, that we're going to be able to handle it?
If they come forward and they become part of the amnesty list, their sump pumps will be disconnected through this program.
Okay, great. And back on the second question, so you're also saying that there was nothing added into this soup that doesn't already exist in other forms in other cities and towns in order to satisfy similar consent decrees?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Reardon. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions, Frank. Now, this septic system you're saying is these illegal ones are hooked up to the storage system, is that correct?
That's correct.
And there's no legitimate tests from the outside to check, like the smoke test or chemicals test, dye test or anything to find out if they're, to find these illegal hookups?
There is not, because a lot of these sumps have water there, so when you smoke test, the smoke can't get through the pipes. And they're all interior, so there's only one way to actually go into the house and find out where the pipe coming out of the sump pump is connected to. A lot of people just have it, a hose dropped right into their slop sinks in the basement, or they have it directly connected to their sewer coming out of their house, their sewer discharge. So there's really no way that smoke can get through there to detect it.
Okay, now, I hope the amnesty works. I mean, I hope people come forward, but, you know, if people have been used to the system working for years, I kind of doubt that, you know, that people are going to come forward. But my next question would be, once you correct it, are you going to be hooking these up to the drainage system, into the drains on the street?
That's the intention, to hook them into the drainage system. Where there are none, we'll either hook them up to a dry well or direct them down the driveways where the water will flow through the gutter line to the closest catch basin.
Yeah,
And
'cause I've had several problems in my ward where they've got permits and they're hooked up legally outside in a pipe leading to the sidewalk into the street, and some of the streets in my ward don't even have drains on them. The water runs right down to the end of the street. And unfortunately, I've had some problems during the winter with the freezing. You know, it's just a problem that, is it legal to hook it into the drain in the front on the streets?
It's perfectly legal, and that's the preference. That's the route we would take if there's available drainage there, and the city would pick up that cost and direct it right to the drain.
Okay, and just one other question. Is there any way possible that through maybe fire or to get entrance into a house to legally look for a septic system? Because that would even solve a problem with these tenement houses, the single-family houses that are turning into really rooming houses. I mean, that'd be a good way to get into a house to see how many people are actually living there.
That's a good point, Counselor, and we're doing that now through our plumbing inspector and building department. Everybody goes into houses for occupancy permits and certificate of inspection permits for multifamilies. The code inspectors are advised to look for sump pumps, and even through fire prevention, they've been told to look for these sump pumps where they can.
Okay, again, it's something that we have to fix. This problem has got to be fixed. So hopefully, you know, this will be the answer, and the amnesty does work. And thanks for all your work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. Councilor Correggio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just forgot one question to ask. Once the ordinance is passed and then there is a savings, once these pumps are eliminated through the city, will the taxpayers see any kind of a water rate reduction by all of this?
Yes, they will, because right now, as Councilor Penta stated, we are treating this extraneous flow that doesn't belong in the sewer system.
Right.
So the taxpayers, the ratepayers are paying the MWRA to treat and transport that flow.
Right. Because the taxpayers need some type of relief. I mean, the water rates are just out of control right now, and hopefully this will help, and I will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Correggio. I am going to ask that we take a vote on this motion to, or on this item to favorably report it out to the full council later tonight. And Councilor Janino.
Yes.
Councilor Guanasso? Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Councilor Ridden?
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. So we will report this out favorably in this evening's council meeting. Second item on the agenda is 12-081, an act relative to the issuance of secondhand dealer licenses. This is an issue that had come up in last year, and I believe it originally came from Councilor Guanasso, a motion that Councilor Guanasso had put forward to the council. And I know that there is some speculation with expanded gaming possibly coming to the city, that there are some folks that are nervous about the number of secondhand dealers and pawn shops that are out there, and that could be out there if we end up seeing a casino in Revere. So I know this was an issue, again, that came up last year. We had kicked it around a little bit, but weren't able to really get to a resolution. I'm going to open it up to Councilor Guanasso, who can enlighten us a little bit more.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the fact that I don't think a pawn shop does anything for a community. I don't know if many people watch. There's two TV programs. One's pawns, and then there's Hardcore Pawn, and one's based out of Chicago, and the other one's based out of Detroit. And if you see and view that particular program, the characters that come into that place are certainly not the most desirable individuals that you'd want coming upon your community. And that spells a picture. It shows to me of a lower class area when these pawn shops are prevailing all over the place. I think through the hard efforts of the concern and the way the city clerk drafted this new ordinance to be up, it's perfect. I just think that, it's taken almost a year. I submitted this motion back on March 26, 2012, and it's taken a year to come to this position where we're at. I think we have more than enough in our community, and bear in mind, it doesn't affect anybody who's in business right now. And say in the future, I think we have 7 or 8, if the numbers serve me correct. In the future, if it goes down to 4 or 5, once it gets to 3, it stops. And then we can replace that. But I don't think any more are necessary in our area. And I don't think, the advent of, if in fact we are lucky enough to get the Suffolk Downs site as a gaming casino, I don't want this in our community. I just feel that it doesn't do any justice to our residents. And we have some very, very honorable people who represent this issue now. But who knows what we're going to get in the future, And I just don't think it's necessary. And in my opinion, I think 3's more than enough. We have 8 right now. That's fine. But I think in the future, Mr. Chairman, I think that this serves a purpose for our community, and I think the council should review this with some thought in mind that this really is necessary we're trying to do a lot of beautiful things in this town. We're trying to make Broadway a presentable area again. We're trying to use that as an offshoot to all the other streets, Revere Street, Winthrop Ave. All these areas will be improved once Broadway becomes a viable place again. So I don't think we need any more pawn shops. And that suffices as it is. And if anybody doesn't agree with me, have them watch those TV shows and have a second opinion as to some of the characters that go into these spots.
Thank you, Councilor Guanasso. I will point out that over the weekend, while I was holed up, I did enjoy Pawn Stars, which is my favorite. It's based out of Las Vegas, which gives us a little look of what we could expect if we have, a casino in the area. Councilor Janino.
Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly with Councilor Guanasso. This is something that it's not the kind of business we want to attract to our city. We're looking to redo Broadway, and we really want to attract first-class businesses and restaurants and things that are really going to bring good business into our city and new business, not this kind of business. And I just feel like it attracts a completely wrong crowd and does not add to the beautification which we work so hard for in our city. So I really like this motion, and I support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Janino. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think this is an excellent motion. A couple of years ago, we had an individual before us that was looking to locate a pawn shop in Ward 5, and I was against that at that time there, and I'm against anything of that nature right now. I mean, we all know that when there are house breaks, and there are a lot of them in different areas, people steal things. They want to get rid of it. Where do they go? They go to a secondhand dealer. They go to a pawn shop. They go to the easiest and quickest way to get money to satisfy whether it's a drug problem or it's any type of an addiction. So I think that allowing these type of establishments in the city, it sends a bad message to the residents of this city, and it sends a bad message to the people who pass through our city and frequent our city. And it causes people to, I go through a city and I see pawn shops here and there. I'm not, I sort of look down on that community because of those type of establishments. So I certainly will not be supporting the location of any pawn shops or secondhand dealers in the city. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Councilor Ridden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am not convinced that this is a good measure simply because of the fact that I have a very strong faith in our free market economy. We have already agreed to permit this type of establishment in the city. In fact, we have a number of them. And I believe that once you say yes to one, you have to establish the fact that everybody has a right to engage in this kind of activity and let the one who does the best job of it prevail. I don't believe that there will be an influx of pawn shops necessarily, regardless of whether we have a casino or not. And I would also point out that we went painstakingly through the process of adopting measures to make sure that anything that was brought into a secondhand shop with a legitimate license is done so with the utmost scrutiny, that the shop owner has the responsibility of identifying who brought the articles in and seeking identification from those people. At this point, I would think that anybody was to bring a stolen item into a pawn shop or secondhand shop in the city of Revere would be a fool to do so and essentially tell the world that he has stolen, or he has in his possession a stolen article that he sold for money. So we've taken the right measures. We've established that we would allow this type of establishment, and we've told those who engage in it that they have a set of rules that they need to follow through. And again, I have a very strong faith in our free market economy. That's what separates us from a lot of other places in the world, and I believe that this measure is unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ridden. Councilor Correggio.
Thank you, Chairman Arrigo. I support Councilor Guanasso's motion. We need this ordinance in place. It's, I think it'll be very healthy for the city. We're trying to make the city a better place for people to live. We just had Revere Beach over the few years reconstructed. Northgate is being reconstructed with the new Market Basket and other new stores to follow. Broadway is going to get a complete facelift. So we're trying to change the look of the city of Revere to give a better look, more professional look. And we don't need this sort of thing coming into the city of Revere. It's just unhealthy, and I support the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Correggio. I want to recognize Councilor Zambuto, who just showed up, and open it up to any other councilors that may want. Councilor Penta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I do agree with this wholeheartedly. The one thing that Council Granasso brought up, and I can't see, when you read the line here, that License Commission shall not approve transfer of a valid secondary dealer's license, which I like that. I'd rather see a person that wants, if you went down 8-3, and somebody wanted to come in, as Council Reardon said, to apply for one, I don't have a problem with that. But when you start transferring them, the moratorium is useless. We have a moratorium and a used car license now, a Class 2 license, that you can transfer it. I forget what council put it in several years back, and he wanted to reduce them as people went out of business to minimize them in the city. And what's in there, there's no transfer. All of them have transfers in them. So you're defeating your purpose of a moratorium if they can. There's 30 out there, there's still 30 from 3 years ago. So I think the transferring these licenses should be null and void. And somebody that wants to put one in, I'm not against that if it's in the right location, the right place. You don't want to put them, you get these check cashing places now. One in the middle of Broadway, one in, at a circle that 60 to 80,000 cars go by a day, maybe more. I mean, it's the location of these things, and that's why you see in these things the TED, the PDs and all that stuff, because some of these places are put out of sight. But, I mean, I like the motion. I'm for it. And the only thing I just hope we stick with non-transferable. Let the license board dictate if a new one should go somewhere else or not. So that's all I ask, is that they stick with the non-transferable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Penta. I'm going to move that we report this out favorably to the committee, to the council as a whole tonight. On that item, Councilor Janino.
Yes.
Councilor Guadasso.
Yes.
Councilor Powers.
Yes.
Councilor Reardon.
No.
And myself, yes. With that, that calls the end of tonight's Legislative Affairs Subcommittee meeting.